live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This Sunday on GB News Breakfast, we've got a special treat for you.
It's me, Angela Rippon.
For just one morning, the broadcast and Strictly Star joins the breakfast team to bring you all the news as it happens.
Nice positive story then.
Another special day here on GB News.
Well, we're still here after the last one.
GB News Breakfast with me, Stephen Dixon, and Angela Rippon, this Sunday from 6.
Yes, we'll be around for a while.
Hello and welcome to GBN Tonight with me, Christopher Hope. A Brexit win that can't be ignored. Britain has come out on top from this America's Liberation Day. Only yesterday we'd called it a doomsday, but now it doesn't feel so bad, with the UK facing one of the smallest levies set by the US, marking a significant post-Brexit win. A Brexit dividend, if you like. And soon we'll be bringing you our big interview with Reform UK leader Nigel Farage on one very special day, his birthday. Let's give you a quick sneak peek of what we had to say. Huge concern about these tariffs. Were they avoidable?
I repeat the offer. If the government wants me to help, I would help, and I would do it. Even though they're a Labour government, I'd do it in the national interest.
I mean, Rupert Lowe has now left, but he had a point, didn't he, about the lack of structure, organisation.
Well, he never joined, actually. Oddly, he never joined. He stood for us without even being a member. I found that out recently.
And you want to be PM? Now, the answer was fascinating. I asked him 3 times if he wanted to be PM, and he didn't answer yes. Stay tuned on that. Now, as the fallout from Netflix series Adolescence continues, today police are urging parents to report their children to prevent if they're watching misogynist videos online. Has all this gone too far? All of that to come, of course, but first the news with Sophia Wensler.
Chris, thank you. It's just gone 7 o'clock. These are your headlines. The US stock market has dropped sharply in early trading after Donald Trump announced a raft of tariffs last night. The UK has drawn up a 400-page list of US products it could hit with tariffs after the US president announced a 10% tariff on UK imports. The government has said any retaliatory tariffs would be a last resort. Meanwhile, a 25% tariff has also come into effect today on all foreign cars imported to the US, a move which experts fear could cost 25,000 jobs in the British car industry. The Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney has just responded, saying his country will match the US auto tariffs with 25% levies on all vehicles imported from the US. And after President Trump imposed a 20% tariff on the EU, French President Macron said the EU will respond in an organised and unified manner and will be more massive than before. Meanwhile, the Prime Minister has told business chiefs in Downing Street that clearly there'll be an economic impact, but the government would respond with cool and calm heads. In other news, the Duke of Sussex has said he hopes the truth will be uncovered about his charity row, saying the fallout of his resignation as patron of the Centre Barley has been heartbreaking to witness. His comments come after the watchdog escalated its investigation into concerns raised about the charity amid a boardroom battle within the organisation. Prince Harry also says he's relieved the regulator has opened a case hitting out at, quote, blatant lies. The Charity Commission opened a compliance case into Centre Barley a week after it emerged Harry had quit as patron, and the charity's chair, Dr Sophie Chandauka, accused him of harassment and bullying at scale by unleashing the Sussex PR machine. Back in the UK, a man who was shot dead by police after he moved at speed towards officers has been named as David Joyce. The 38-year-old was given first aid by officers but died at the scene after the incident on Tuesday. The IOPC said its investigators collected a knife and other evidence from outside Milton Keynes railway station from Tuesday afternoon, and they are now appealing for witnesses. The expansion of Luton Airport has been approved by Transport Secretary Heidi Alexander, despite the Planning Inspectorate recommending she reject it over environmental concerns. Luton was the UK's fifth busiest airport last year, with 16.9 million people travelling on 132,000 flights. The expansion plans involve building a new terminal, new taxiways and increasing capacity in the existing terminal from its current 18 million passengers a year. And King Charles has marked the 80th anniversary of Mission Aviation Fellowship at RAF Northolt today, unveiling a new aircraft that would deliver aid to remote regions of Papua New Guinea. The King also celebrated Papua New Guinea's 50th anniversary of independence during the visit. It comes after the monarch was recently admitted for a short hospital stay due to the side effects of his cancer treatment. Those are the latest GB News headlines. More in an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Welcome to GBN Tonight with me, Christopher Hope. Now, Britain has bagged a beneficial trade deal with the US. Sort of, anyway. Donald Trump's deal doesn't exempt the UK from its tariffs, but he's gone easy on us to a degree, slapping just 10% of those tariffs on UK exports to America, compared with 20% for members of the European Union.
United Kingdom 10%, and we'll go 10%, so we'll do the same thing. You know, you think of the European Union, very friendly. They rip us off. It's so sad to see. It's so pathetic. 39%, we're going to charge them 20%, so we're charging them essentially half.
That's the lowest rate he's imposed alongside Brazil. Meanwhile, as you heard there, the EU faces a much harsher tariff of 20%. At least this could be called a Brexit win that maybe can't be ignored. Had we still been in the EU, of course, our exporters would have been much hit. We've been hit much, much harder. I'm very pleased to be joined in the studio here at GB News in Westminster by Sir John Redwood, the former Conservative MP and Minister and renowned Tory Brexiteer, as well as my panel, of course, the former Labour advisor Paul Richards and former Tory MP and former Tory Minister Heather Wheeler. Thank you for joining us both. To you first, then, Sir John Redwood. This is a Brexit dividend, isn't it?
Yes, it sure is. It means that our exports will be 10% cheaper than France or Germany's and 14% cheaper than Japan's. We've got the minimum extra tariff that Trump is imposing. More importantly, because he likes Brexit and he likes the United Kingdom, Keir Starmer and his team could actually negotiate a deal very quickly from here. Great pity they haven't already done it, for lower tariffs all round between us and the United States of America, so our trade could be on a roll while the EU trade is in the slow lane. Thank goodness we're not in the customs union. Far too many tariffs, far too high. Do you know that we actually got rid of a fifth of all the tariffs that we had to impose when we were in the EU as one of the Brexit wins when we came out? Pity we didn't get rid of more of them. Taxes are a tariff on the consumer. And we should not retaliate against Trump tariffs. They've made it very clear we'll be in the sin bin with the EU if we retaliate. There is every opportunity of doing a good deal here, and Britain can then get ahead.
No one is saying retaliate, not even Kevin Badenoch or Keir Starmer, and even Nigel Farage, by the way, interviewing later in the show, he's saying don't retaliate. Yep. So everyone agrees with this, calm and cool.
Yeah, but they've said today that they're looking at 400 different line items they might impose tariffs on. Please don't, government. That is taxing us. You've taxed us rotten. You've taxed us into no growth. We've got this massive national insurance surcharge coming up, making it very difficult to employ people. The last thing we need is another tax hit in the form of tariffs.
There's a wait-and-see approach. They're going to consult before May the 1st with any company in the country who wants to talk to them about what's going on here. They are saying to us, the CBI, the IOD, the Institute of Directors, the British Chambers of Commerce, they're all backing this softly approach.
Yeah, well,
is that right?
No tariffs is the clear answer. We want to get out of this with less tariff, not more.
But we're being beaten up by a bully in America, surely.
No, but we needn't be. And he's clearly not beating us up nearly as hard as he's beating up the EU and China, because they're the ones that he thinks are cheating. But he's right that there have been trade cheats on the European side, and we need to get out of those and make sure that we have a sensible open market with much lower tariffs all around. And that is what Brexit gave us, and we've only done half the job. So please, Keir, use it, win it.
own your Brexit freedoms. But Paul Richards, I'm always fascinated by this. If this government has a Brexit lock on its policy, which is no return to the single market, customs union or freedom of movement, why not own that and then be a champion for Brexit? Because that's the status we're not going to reverse.
I mean, it does stick in the craw of the Conservatives and Reform commentators today, but it might actually be down to the Labour government's negotiation tactics, a team that went in, Johnny Reynolds and the rest, and also all the buttering up that Starmer did. He came in for an awful lot of criticism of that. You know, the royal letter and the playing nice in the white.
Not from us, he didn't. Not this channel, no. They thought he was doing pretty well.
It does seem to have paid off, doesn't it? And I mean, I know people are going to fall over themselves to say it's all thanks to Brexit, but I think it's down to the here and now, actually, and the negotiation tactics and the geopolitical stance. And nous, I would argue, the government has shown.
It's actually a formula, and it's mainly down to the fact that we aren't trade cheats with America, so we don't have a big surplus with them. That's the main reason.
Heather Wheeler, is it time that Frankie Whitehall got out of its crouch and embraced the freedoms, the opportunity that Brexit was essentially a power grab, giving it from Brussels to elected politicians to take ownership of choices made in our name?
Clearly, I would love them to do that. But, you know, the guys in the Foreign Office and the guys in Bays, they are so slow at realising that this oil tanker actually has moved, and it's such an opportunity. Let's not waste it. Let's not waste it.
Well, John Redwood, do you blame the civil servants? They're often the whipping boy, aren't they, I think, for the Tory party. Don't they take their direction, frankly, from elected leaders?
Well, I'm a Democrat, so I blame the ministers, because the ministers have direct and control them, and if they've got top officials who are getting in the way, they should move them. It's not easy, but that is the job of the minister. Nobody said it was easy. So there were big disappointments under the last government where they didn't go far enough, fast enough on lots of the Brexit opportunities and wins. We didn't get VAT off a lot of things, and we are actually free to take VAT off all the green products permanently, for example. Why on earth didn't we do that?
Well, adding it to education, which you can't even do in the European Union.
Well, that's the irony, that Labour is now using the Brexit freedoms to do the wrong thing. But as a Democrat, I can't complain about that.
No, that's Brexit.
That's Brexit, that is a democratic win. I now want a government that doesn't want to do that kind of thing.
You're an expert on this stuff. Have you priced up the value of 10% tariffs against 20%? Can we actually price up the value of not being in the European Union under these tariffs?
Well, we will be able to. I haven't done that sum today because you'd have to analyse all the things that we're going to attract that tariff. But clearly, we're going to sell more than France and Germany.
Is it worth billions a year? Is it billions of pounds a year?
Well, it could well be. And we need now to work away on the car tariff, which is the problem.
25%.
The United Kingdom. Yeah. But, of course, the British government is killing the car industry anyway because they've said that all the diesel and petrol car factories have got to close by 2030. So I do think the industry should get a bit worked up about that as well.
Paul Richards, that's the EV mandate you're talking about there. This requirement that they must sell a certain amount of electric vehicles per year going forwards. On the day that Luton Airport gets the green light against environmental concerns, and Keir Starmer writes on Twitter, we're not going to be faced down by the blockers. What is going on in this government? Is it not time just to junk net zero and get on with growing the economy?
No, but it is a sign that we are serious about being builders, not blockers, and Build Baby Build is now the slogan of
But you've got this EV mandate, which John Redwood talks about,
well,
and you've got issues such as net zero.
You are literally sacking people and closing factories.
We
That's what the
are
policy does.
judged on growth, aren't we? That's the one thing that we will be judged on as a government. And more airports is one way you get growth, as is European rearmament and lots of other things too. I would have nationalised the steel industry today as well, by the way.
That sounds like they're in talks on that.
I think that's going to happen, and quite right too.
So are they going to save the blast furnaces, or are they going to close?
I would argue they should. I mean, I'm not privy to that high-level conversation.
Heather Wheeler, all this started on net zero under the last government when you were in charge.
Yeah, but
it's all your fault.
Fortunately, some of us, very locally, managed to persuade them to push it back to 35. And 35 was fine, 35 was doable. Yes. So that's what I'm hoping this government will see.
Boris Johnson brought it forward to 2030 and then Rishi Sunak was more practical.
We got it changed back to 35.
It's a disaster.
Of course it is.
If people want to buy electric cars, they buy electric cars. If they don't want to buy them, there's a good reason for it, and they've got to make them cheaper and better.
But you've got grandchildren, John Redwood. It's about living a better world for them, isn't it?
Yeah, I want a better world for them, and I want a better world where they have better paid jobs and more opportunities, and they won't have that with this crippling net zero policy, which is making Britain uncompetitive and deindustrialising us.
At least they won't be buying Teslas anyway. At least no one's buying Teslas.
Just going back to tariffs. I know Brexit's a great rabbit hole we all go down. Just very briefly, these 10% tariffs come in on Saturday.
Yeah.
National insurance increase comes in on Sunday. It's a big weekend, I think, for companies, isn't it? How will this Labour government bring back companies on side, do you think?
Well, if they can show that the investment is going to cause growth and that will help in the longer term, then of course business wants that. I mean, what's being imposed upon us from the White House, though, is not of our design or choosing. It's an enormous global economic experiment that we're now just a tiny part of. I can't think of a place where it's worked ever. It didn't work in America, by the way, when they tried it in the 30s. It caused a great slump. So, you know, it's a big experiment.
Just back to finance with our guest, John Redwood. Is there any upside from this? Is it cheaper cars so they can't go to America? Is there any upside from these tariffs?
Well, there can be an upside if we get the deal that I think is there to be done. And please, Keir, get on with it. It's your only priority. That will save jobs. But at the same time, you need to improve domestic policy so that we can take advantage of it. Because if you're killing all the businesses with high national insurance and net zero policies, we won't be able to respond.
I think we've got the message there. John Redwood, thank you for joining us tonight, and of course to Heather Wheeler and Paul Richards. Thanks to my panel. Coming up next, do tune in, you won't want to miss it. It's the usual presenter of this slot on GB News, Nigel Farage, of course Reform UK leader. He tells me what he thinks about those Trump tariffs and if they could have been avoided entirely. Plus I ask him, does he want to be Prime Minister? Listen to that answer very closely. And I asked him when he last spoke to the White House and what he thinks of Vladimir Putin. Stay tuned.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and this is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Patrick Christie's Tonight, weekdays from 9 p.m.
You can smack, thwack, thump, and everyone's got a different definition of what it is.
I'm not an idiot.
Smacking
Most parents aren't idiots. They can draw a distinction between those.
Lazy, shortcut parenting, and there's no case in which it's justified. Smacking spreads. So you smack one, they're going to smack their siblings. They're going to go into school and disagree with other children and give them a whack. And then what about, do you give proxy rights to teachers, nursery workers?
No.
And in fact, no, you don't. So you love your child so much that you're going to smack them. Only you. It's special for you.
Hang on a minute, Anna May. Are you, just so we're clear, Anna May, are you accusing Bev of being a bad mother or something here?
I'm saying I can't believe that in 2025 somebody would come on TV and defend doing something to a child that wouldn't be acceptable to a
Bev,
dog.
do you want to come back to that?
If you smack a dog in the street, Bev, if you smack a dog in the street,
Let's let Bev in.
Is almost every parent is smacking their child, except they won't admit it. And so what you've developed by that sort of parenting, it is true, is you've developed a culture of shame, whereby parents might have that instinct, as mammals will have, whether it's a monkey or a cat or a lion. In the natural world, the adult, the parent of that young cub, whatever it is, will occasionally.
What are we talking about here? Are we talking about hurting children with your hand, and also not even having a standard? Paediatricians are saying don't do it. And also this argument, I know what's going to come next. You're going to say, oh, the police could be involved. Aren't they going to be too busy to do this? Guess what? Children can't dial 999, particularly the very young ones.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Westminster, the ultimate clique.
And you're fighting like rats in a sack.
But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask.
OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician.
Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off limits.
You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless.
No, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show.
Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to GBN Tonight with me, Christopher Hope. Now, earlier today I sat down with the leader of Reform UK, Nigel Farage. We covered everything from local elections to his view on Vladimir Putin and when he last spoke to the White House and his future aspirations to be Prime Minister. Have a listen.
Nigel Farage, thank you for joining us tonight on GB News. Huge concern about these tariffs. Were they avoidable?
Well, he said he'd put tariffs on. He was elected to do that. And, of course, he's put us in the lower tier, the lowest tier. Interestingly, EU 20%, UK 10%. By the way, I'm not pretending 10% is good. No. It's just less bad than it would have been without Brexit.
It's all down to you then, because you took the EU.
It's something that most of the commentariat can't really see.
Do we owe you a thank you then, Nigel Farage, for getting us out of the European Union and avoiding these tariffs 9 years later?
Well, but I think we should go much further than that. I can tell you this. I sat down face to face with Trump in 2017. He said, we want to do a deal with you guys. I want to show the world I believe in trade if it's fair, if it's right, if it's good for both sides. But of course, we didn't do a deal. Why? Because the Conservatives didn't take us out of the European Union. We went through the whole of 2017, 2018, 2019, and on it went. And by the time we'd finally left the European Union, frankly, it was all a bit too late. We did, however, do a lot of negotiation. 2/3 of a deal is there on the table. And it was really interesting to hear Jonathan Reynolds this morning. Because on the one hand, you've got Ursula von der Leyen of the European Union saying, we're going to retaliate. And Jonathan Reynolds saying, no, we're not going to retaliate. We're going to look to ways not just to erase tariffs, but to go further towards a trade deal. And it's very interesting for a Labour government, led by a Prime Minister who wanted a second referendum. They're now actually behaving a bit more like Brexiteers. Fascinating.
Using the powers that Brexit gave them, because it's on them.
Using the powers Brexit gave them on this, and also on foreign policy. When the reason, we can come to Ukraine, and I'm, by the way, very, very cautious about sending British troops on the ground in Ukraine for an undetermined period of time. But even acting as he's trying to do as the bridge between the European members of NATO and America, Brexit has benefited this Prime Minister.
Extraordinary, isn't it? Have you talked to the White House? Are they using you as a back channel? We thought that might happen when he came in, and right now be quite helpful.
What's really interesting is that in the first term, I spoke to the White House quite a lot. In this term, I haven't, because I can't be seen to interfere unless the government wants me to be useful or to be helpful. I have said many times, I don't just know the President, I know half the Cabinet.
And you've told Keir Starmer that on the floor of the House. You offered it, playing privately.
I've done it many times. They're choosing to go their own route, and fine, perhaps they're better qualified than me to do it. I just think that, when it comes to the people holding the big key jobs in economics, I just happen to know these people, happen to be friendly with these people. Look, I repeat the offer. If the government wants me to help, I would help, and I would do it. Even though they're a Labour government, I'd do it in the national interest.
There's a 417-page list of products that could be tariffed at 10% proposed by the government this afternoon. What would your response be to where we are now? If you were Prime Minister now, how would you mitigate this hit on our industry?
You'd recognise that in the next week, that isn't going to change. But in the next month or two, it can change. Lots of reasons why. Number one, we are still the biggest foreign investor in America. America is the biggest foreign investor here. We don't trade with America at a massive surplus, unlike Germany and many other countries in the European Union. There are areas like financial services where, frankly, some simplification of the rules could benefit both sides. The biggest argument is over food. But frankly, if things are labelled properly and consumers have the choice, I don't see a massive problem there either, frankly.
That's chicken, and I like chlorinated chicken.
Well, yeah, but every bag of salad you buy in any supermarket, any pre-bag salad is chlorine washed anyway. And look, everyone goes apoplectic about chlorine washed chicken. Don't buy it. It's very easy.
Label it.
Yeah, it's very easy.
It's a labelling issue, really.
It's a labelling issue, it's a consumer choice issue, and a consumer knowledge issue.
On Ukraine, that's a big challenge facing. Putin is normally dominating discussion in Westminster, not today because of tariffs. What's your position on boots on the ground? Would you vote? There was a vote. We are told there's a vote.
I'm pretty annoyed that the Prime Minister is reverting to outright lies.
Well, that's a big thing to say.
No. Outright lies, saying that reform fawned over Putin. I've never heard such rubbish.
But that's your remark, saying he's
No. I said in one sentence 12 years ago that I respected him as a leader, but didn't like him as a person and wouldn't live in Russia.
Strong leader, you said, didn't you?
Yeah, well, there's no questions of what he is. That's why he's been there.
But that's fawning for them, isn't it?
It's almost as if there's no nuance of any kind allowed. You know, has Putin been a successful Russian politician? Well, up until the invasion of Ukraine, arguably, yes. I've never liked the guy. We deplore the invasion. The fact the Prime Minister is sinking to these depths, I think shows you, despite what's happening on the international stage, domestically, this government's become very unpopular very, very quickly. And my nervousness is this. Back in the early 1950s, there was a settlement to end the Korean War. Korea divided north and south with the divide, and the Americans, us to some extent, but the Americans said they'd put an army in to maintain the peace. 72 years later, there are still 24,000 American troops in Korea. We went into Afghanistan in 2001. Little did we know we'd be there for 20 years. The British Army has been diminished since 2010. It's the smallest it's been for centuries. For every one man in the front line or woman, you need two behind, you know, reserves, etc. So one, I'm worried the army isn't big enough, and two, I want the Prime Minister to tell me, if we send troops in, for how long, and what's the objective?
Just briefly, other areas too. Chagos Islands, that deal has now been approved by the White House, we think, from government source.
Yeah, I mean, the reason the Americans have approved it is because we've said to them, don't worry, guys, we'll pay for all of it. The Americans will not contribute a penny.
And that bill is how much again?
So nobody tells the truth on this because nobody understands simple arithmetic. The deal of 90 million a year for 99 years, that's pretty much uncontested, right? So, even government doesn't fight back against that. 90 million pounds a year for 99 years linked to inflation. If inflation runs at 3%, and given the way compounding works, that would be a repayment of £52 billion. And frankly, right now, well, when you've taken away the winter fuel allowance, when you're threatening family farms, when the economy and the borrowing figures are in dire trouble, and when you're promising to increase the size of defence spending, yes, why risk this money?
And it's hard to sell, I think, when that figure... They do challenge 90 million a year. We'll see where that ends up, but it'll be a lot of...
Well, I mean, I think everyone accepts it's 9 billion.
You're standing in every seat in the country. That's a significant step forward for your young party. You're now ahead in the polls. Electoral calculus say you'll be the biggest party after the election. Do you want to be Prime Minister? Is that...
Well, I'm immensely proud of taking this party from the 5th of July, from yes, millions of votes and just a handful of members of Parliament. I'm immensely proud we've set up 400 branches. I'm immensely proud that our membership has gone from early June, less than 30,000, to now 221,000. And I'm immensely proud that, 1,640 candidates are going into the field with a full slate for these elections. It has been my biggest goal since the general election to get this party ready to fight elections on a big scale. So I'm immensely proud of that. I make no bones about it. The 1st of May is important to us. We're pretty gutted that Norfolk, Suffolk, Essex, Sussex,
no elections there,
have been cancelled because they were potentially, on paper, our strongest areas. So no, May the 1st matters to us enormously.
And those numbers, no wrong ones in there, often get caught out by...
All I can promise you is that
they've been fully vetted.
We have vetted our candidates to a higher level and a higher standard than any party has ever done before for local elections.
Obviously, you're a young party. You've been in charge for 8 months, 9 months, but you do lack a structure. You have 4 MPs now in the Commons, but who is your Treasury spokesman? Who's your Home Affairs spokesman? I mean, Rupert Lowe has now left, but he had a point, didn't he, about the lack of structure, organisation.
Well, he never joined, actually. Oddly, he never joined. He stood for us without even being a member. I found that out recently, which is odd.
But he's right on the issue of structure.
Structure, we had
you purport to be a party for next government.
You are comparing us with parties that have been around for 130 years or 200 years, right? We are a very, very much an infant in terms of time. First things first is to build a party structure, to be able...
From the grassroots up.
From the grassroots up, which is why I'm touring the country. This will be, I think, my last day in London until May the 2nd. So building a structure, building a party, getting candidates out fighting elections, they come before having a Treasury spokesman, a health spokesman. Do we have to do all of those things? Yes. And one of the next steps of our development will be after May the 1st, during the summer, we'll get a party board in place with elected representation. This is, we are cramming years of evolution into a very short time frame.
And you want to be PM yourself, don't you? You campaign against all your life.
Do you know what? The reason I came back out of political retirement last year, partly frustration that Brexit wasn't being delivered anything like I thought it should be, but chiefly because I genuinely believe that we are in a cycle of economic decline, of societal decline, of cultural decline, which if it's not turned around in the space of a few short years, this country will literally be unrecognisable to all of us.
So you can imagine yourself going to the door of number 10.
So let me finish. I see myself right at the moment to be the right person to lead a completely new political movement, if you like, a political revolution. And I believe right now I am the best person to do that. If somebody younger and better looking comes along, who's more capable than me, do you know what? I'll recognise.
But you want to be PM, do you?
No, you misunderstand me. You fundamentally misunderstand me. There are two types of people in politics. Those who want to be something, namely aspiring to rank and position.
Yes.
And those who want to do something. I want to turn this country around. Everything from the education system through to attitudes towards work, borders, culture, you name it. I want to turn this country around. That's why I'm sitting here talking to you right now. At the minute, I believe I'm the best person to do that.
Even on issues, there's some confusion about you want to bring in new green taxes. There are reports the weekend of a major campaign to counter house building. Is that right? Is that policy think tank?
No, we have to build houses.
Yes, you're pro house building.
We have to build houses. The population's exploding. We have to build houses.
Yes. And the rape gangs, the Tories are leading the way on the more now. I know you've been pushing very hard.
Rape gangs, they covered it up whilst they were in power.
And now they're pushing for a national inquiry with the votes in the House of Commons. Rupert Lowe's got a privately funded one.
No. Look, we took a private prosecution out against the Manchester attackers on the basis of two-tier justice. It worked. CPS then acted. I challenged the government to hold a national inquiry into the rape gangs. They responded by giving us 5 separate inquiries. There's no point me holding an inquiry into this or Rupert Lowe holding an inquiry into this unless it has statutory powers. Yes, of course, the rape victims need to be heard. But what is shocking about this isn't just the abuse of the young women, it's the extent of the cover-up. And without statutory powers, we ain't going to get there. So yes, the Tories are playing catch-up with us on virtually everything, having themselves in office done the opposite. And what they don't understand is that the breach of trust with them, with about half their voters from 2019, is so great, it isn't going to return.
And just finally, going back to this polling, do you think you've topped out? Can you go higher into the 30s? You're kind of mid-20s now, aren't you, with the other 3 parties? Is it have you gone as far as you can go? And
you know what? The progress we made is unbelievable. And it's why May the 1st matters so much. If people in elections think that if you vote reform, you get reform. If people start to think that in very large numbers, in big geographical areas in Britain, we'll go a lot higher.
Nigel Farage, thank you for joining us today on GB News.
Thank you.
In your HQ.
Well, there we have Nigel Farage. Now, I should clarify, of course, there are charges against those individuals named there or talked about there by Nigel Farage in Manchester. Now, I'll be getting a reaction from my panel on that bombshell interview. Plus, a new poll suggests that that man himself, Farage, would become PM if an election was called. But does he want the job, given that interview? More of that next.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions. But every Friday night at 9 p.m, you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news,
Please bring us up to date.
or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons,
Very, very curious.
we bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
If you want your news to be straight talking,
this is the nightmare for the Conservatives again.
down to earth,
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
and most importantly, honest,
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get the book thrown at them.
then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Westminster, the ultimate clique.
And you're fighting like rats in a sack.
But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask.
OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician.
Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off limits.
You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
And
say,
now you've lost it.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless.
But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show.
Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently. It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it? It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial. And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born. It's everything you need to kickstart your evening. Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it. That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to GBN Tonight with me, Christopher Hope. Now, before the break, I spoke to Reform UK leader Nigel Farage. He offered to help negotiate a trade deal with the US for Keir Starmer. Putin was no friend of his, he said, and he refused to name, say, 3 times whether he wanted to be Prime Minister. That was interesting. Also, he had a criticism there of Rupert Lowe not being a member of Reform UK when he stood to be a candidate at the election and became an MP at the July election last year. I asked Rupert Lowe for a right of reply. He told me this, that he was funding his own campaign in both Kingswood, while Nigel Farage wasn't there, and Great Yarmouth. That costed tens of thousands of pounds of his own money, with no help from Reform. And if that meant he wasn't a member, then the answer is yes. So that's Rupert Lowe for you. And of course, he's now no longer a Reform UK MP, and he's got issues and debates with Farage about everything else under the sun. Joining me now in the studio here is a former Labour advisor, Paul Richards, and former Tory MP and Minister Heather Wheeler. To you first, Paul Richards. For me, I find it extraordinary that someone leading the polls in our British politics doesn't want to say he wants to be Prime Minister. Am I getting the wrong idea here?
It was a fascinating interview because the great anti-political figure, the one who's supposed to be the outlier, the outrider, sounded exactly like a politician to me. It sounded like a cabinet minister being skewered on some difficult policy point where they couldn't say the truth, but they had to sort of hide behind the weasel words. And I think he does want to be Prime Minister because that explains a lot of the ways he's dealt with reform over the last year and some of the candidates they've stopped from standing and some of the policy positions and all the rest of it, the professionalisation of the party. He's not doing that for larks. I think that's because he thinks he's in with a shout, but he can't say it out loud because that would be the headline.
Because you can't... Heather Wheeler, am I missing a trick here? Can you not say you want to be PM any day anymore?
No, I genuinely thought that I was the only person in Parliament that didn't want to be Prime Minister. So apparently he's learned from me. It's a shock.
It was fascinating, I think. I mean, he wants to help the Keir Starmer.
On and on and on. Just the word salad, wasn't it? And he was obviously felt quite nervous about having to say something.
Because he hasn't actually governed, you see. A lot of MPs who in the main parties have been councillors, have run things, have had budgets in the past. He hasn't done that yet. yet. Is that a weakness that might be exposed pre-election, Heather Wheeler?
But also, isn't it maybe how come he did a deal with Tice? And what is the deal with Tice? Because Tice rolled over so quickly, didn't he? So quickly. So maybe...
At that point, it was a company owned by Farage. That's probably why. He was a main shareholder saying, off you go, Richard.
Yeah, and Richard's got 20%, hasn't he? So the whole thing's got to change as well. But I think you better ask Tice. Does he like to be Prime Minister?
To you, Paul Richards, on the issue of Putin, he said concerns about boots on the ground. Those are shared by Cayman Badenoch and other Tories, and that's why the vote on any commitment of troops on the ground is so important. But he said there, has he called Putin a successful Russian politician before the invasion of Ukraine? I never liked the guy. We deplore the invasion. Is that enough for you? Why do you guys keep saying he fawns over Putin then?
Well, I think that interview you just broadcast sort of suggested he is still fawning over Putin. I mean, I think it's a very strong attack line. And, you know, when Labour does these things, they do it based on what people feel. They focus group it, they work it out with the electors first. And there is this strong suspicion and fear that he is somehow soft on Putin. And if you look at the words he actually said there, that reinforces this. So it is a line that Labour's going to be using again and again because it seems to work and it seems to have an element of truth about it.
Well, Paul Richards, Heather Wheeler, thank you for that. Now, a new poll shows the Reform Party could storm to victory in a general election campaign with, yes, that man, Nigel Farage, heading for number 10. The survey of 5,180 voters puts Reform at 25%, ahead of Labour and the Tories, both stuck at 23%. Reform UK will grab, you see it there, 220 seats, up from just 5 last year, while Labour crashes from its supermajority at the moment to 180 MPs, and the Tories rise marginally to 130. With no party set to win a majority, a Reform-Tory coalition could see Farage become Prime Minister. I'm very pleased to be joined in the studio right now by Kevin Craig, the founder of PLMR, a Westminster public affairs company, who commissioned this poll, as well as my panel, of course, the former Labour advisor Paul Richards and the former Tory MP and Minister Heather Wheeler. To you first, Kevin Craig. Extraordinary. Do you think, though, that these main parties have plateaued? We are basically around the same numbers we've seen for a bit now, up, give or take 1 or 2%.
Yeah, I mean, these numbers, and this is going to happen every quarter till the next general election, they show that the era of two-party dominance is at the moment that's gone. It shows that Reform and Nigel Farage are a very effective vehicle for protest votes. It says things that the government behind the scenes knows. The government knows that trust in politicians is really low, all of them, and that shines through here when you've got large numbers of people saying they don't know who they would like to trust.
That's how Reform benefits.
Reform benefits from that, and you know, you saw tonight because Farage is a very effective communicator, where he tries to slip and dodge the fact that he's been very supportive of Russia in the past. He doesn't want to talk about NHS waiting lists.
Not very supportive. He said that he's a strong man.
That's
Putin,
opinion.
Not very supportive.
That's opinion, right? So he's very effective communicating in the run up to the election, but the government knows there's a long way to go, but this shows that Reform are doing well. The Conservative Party, and I'm sure, you know, Heather as a Foreign Minister will have a view, but they are struggling at the moment to break through the noise. And I recall from the general election that the most of the energy on the ground and the vibrancy in electoral politics was Labour and Reform. The Conservative Party structurally, you hear it also when you hear about ministers, it's hard to get ministers to do party fundraising events, you know, they're struggling. But what this shows is that people are fed up. Internationally, Starmer is respected, but that doesn't cut through domestically. Until people feel it through delivery, these numbers are going to stay very low. Scotland, the SNP are benefiting from a plague on all your houses. And
extraordinary, of course.
It is, indeed, given their performance and their delivery and their time in government.
Because they've done pretty badly on their own domestic policies.
Indeed they have, but they're sort of using the current situation to their benefit. But yes, you know, it is very good polling again for Reform. The government knows that politicians across the board are unpopular, and in the run-up to the local election, it is Reform that are benefiting from this. Starmer, however, knows, and cabinet members that I talk to know, that if the government, when it delivers and people feel it, things will turn.
There's a map on screen there of the findings there from Kevin Craig's panel. It is a young party, 8 months in, and there's a feeling, I think, amongst parts of social media that all the parties are the same. Look at the policies pursued by Labour, cutting the aid budget, more money on defence, cutting welfare to a degree. cutting the civil service, increasing the taxes. The Tories did all that, didn't they?
But you see, voters, they know what they're unhappy with, which is the cost of living, uncertainty, insecurity, but there's no track record whatsoever that Reform have got. And at the moment, they can't seem to run a party with as many members as you can fit into a family-sized car. So there's a lot yet to be delivered by this party. There's no evidence that they can deliver on this stuff. But when people are unhappy, protest parties benefit. And we've seen that again, and I think we'll keep seeing it in the run-up to the next
Despite not being
general.
ready to form a government, despite having no front bench in Reform UK, they lead the poll.
But it's because people are really fed up, and Labour can't turn that round overnight.
Kevin Craig, thank you. And to my panel, of course, excellent to hear from you both. And coming up next, as the fallout from the Netflix series Adolescence continues, today police are urging parents to report their children to prevent the Home Office's anti-extremism programme if they're watching misogynist videos online. Has this all gone too far? Stay tuned.
Dinner under the stars tonight?
That reminds me of our travel insurance.
You mean all clear skies?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
Well, the UK has plenty of sunshine. There is more wet and windy weather to come across parts of Spain and Portugal over the next couple of days. An area of low pressure bringing wet and windy weather in here. Generally fine across the Canaries. Temperature will be rising here. Plenty of sunshine for Corsica and Sardinia, much of northern Italy. One or two isolated showers in southern Italy. Quite showery over mainland Greece and through parts of Turkey too. A continued possibility of showers here, but some sunny skies for Santorini and warming up a touch in Barcelona.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
Hi there and welcome to your latest Met Office forecast for GB News. There's going to be plenty more fine weather on offer over the next 24 hours. Lots of warm sunshine on Friday, but there will be a little bit of patchy rain in some western areas overnight Thursday and into Friday, and that's courtesy of these weather fronts moving in from the south, so something a little bit more unsettled perhaps for a time. But as we go into Thursday evening, that rain starts to clear away from southwestern England and Wales, moves into Northern Ireland, but I think we'll only see just some patchy light rain by the end of the night. Most places staying dry with clear spells and turning pretty cold across Scotland and the north of England. A frost in places, but much milder in the south compared to of late, and temperatures in double figures for some of us as we begin the day on Friday. So a bit of a cloudier start for some of us as we begin the day on Friday. Some areas of low cloud moving into northeastern parts of Scotland. So Aberdeenshire, Caithness, a bit cloudy here, but most parts of Scotland, blue skies and sunshine after that chilly start. Temperatures will quickly rise as well. A bit more in the way of cloud across Northern Ireland, Wales and the southwest. Still one or two spots of rain here and there, but most places quickly becoming dry. And then the vast majority of the UK will have a fine and increasingly sunny day on Friday. That sunshine's got some strength to it now, so temperatures quickly rising into the low 20s in some southern parts by the afternoon. Those North Sea coasts, though, still fairly chilly. That brisk northeasterly wind keeping temperatures on the east coast more like 10 or 11 degrees at best. But in the sunshine everywhere, out of that breeze, it will feel pretty warm. As we move into the weekend then, Saturday starts off on a fairly cloudy note for some central and eastern parts of England and eastern Scotland. But once again, that cloud burning away quite nicely and then lots of sunshine by the afternoon. And once again, it will feel fairly warm in that sunshine, but not quite as warm as it has done of late. But plenty of fine weather in the outlook, even into next week. Lots of sunshine, temperatures a little bit lower than of late.
Headliners on GB News 11 p.m. every night. It's got 3 top comedians going through the next day's newspapers so you don't have to read them, which is great.
That's a good point. He's lying. Maybe he's not lying.
That's Headliners every night from 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. as well on GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
If you want your news to be straight talking,
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
down to earth,
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
and most importantly, honest,
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to GBN Tonight with me, Christopher Hope. Now, Education Secretary Bridget Phillipson has called for more male teachers in schools, saying that British boys need stronger role models in the classroom. She believes that boys and young men growing up in Britain face serious challenges, which were highlighted by the Netflix series Adolescence. This comes as police urge parents to report their children to the anti-terror programme Prevent if they suspect they are watching harmful, misogynistic content online. Has this gone too far? Are politicians being distracted by fiction when life is frankly far more serious? I'm joined now by Ashley Frawley, sociologist and research fellow at MCC Brussels. Ashley, welcome to GBN Tonight. Have you watched Adolescence yet?
I have, and it's a shame because it's a great show, but you kind of have to get over the browbeating with the highly, I don't know, middle-of-the-road liberal agenda. Otherwise, it's a great piece of artistry, but the fallout from it's been absolutely ridiculous. I mean, we have a moral panic about working-class boys, and you can't even, I mean, for years, you couldn't get anyone to do anything about grooming gangs, and that was a real thing. That actually happened.
Yes, I mean, this obviously is fiction, but it's been treated as fact, isn't it, by the Prime Minister? He held a round table this week about an issue. Is it a real thing, or is it just tapping into, frankly, middle-class parents' anxiety about what they can't control their children watching in the bedroom?
Well, it's a little bit of both. There is a certain amount of anxiety amongst parents. We've totally radically transformed childhood and just filled it with so many risks that you could never sort of watch your children enough. And then when you watch them too much, you're a helicopter parent. So parents are on edge at all times anyway. But also I think that we have really done a disservice to young people in society, that there is... We're offering less and less to them in terms of what it means to become an adult. Fewer pathways, less clarity in terms of, okay, you are going to grow up and you're going to go into a higher status when you become an adult. You know, most cultures have rites of passage, you know, that you go through and you come out the other side and you are, greater than what you were before. But our society fawns over youth so much that children are the future, young people are the future. So what does it mean when you grow up? You become implicit in all the problems.
Is it partly because adults don't really grow up anymore? They still go to the same bands, the same music, wear the same clothes when they're in their early 40s. Not just Paul Richards, by the way.
But that's exactly it, right? Like, why would you want to grow up? Adults are so maligned in our society. It offers you nothing. And so people are looking for something. They're looking for some script. They're saying, like, tell me how to behave, how to be, where do I fit in? And particularly for young men, they have really been maligned by society. And all this talk about wanting more male teachers, well, how about you stop talking about them like they're all predators in waiting? So these sort of relationships between men and younger men and boys are like, ooh, kind of gross. Well, then how are you going to grow up? You know, how do you grow into an adult if you don't have an example? We've radically separated adults and children and made those relationships kind of gross and icky. Well, yeah, of course people aren't going to want to grow up. Of course young men aren't going to want to go into the teaching profession. Of course we've got a confused young generation. We need to stop problematizing, making a huge problem of relationships between adults and children, and actually offering something to young people in terms of growing up. This is a good thing. We want to grow up. You're going to have more freedoms. You will not be responsible for all the problems in the world. You're not a predator in waiting.
Thank you, Ashley Frawley, for joining us tonight on GB News and GBN Tonight. Thank you for joining us tonight. Quick final word to the panel. Paul Richards, you look great in your clothes, by the way, but quick...
Thank you very much.
Is the point issue right there about the issue of young people, young boys?
There's something about role models. I think that's fair. I think there's something also about how we sort of treat young people, particularly white working class young men. I think that's fair too. I would like to see the army double in size and put some of these people into the army. I think that would help. But, you know, we need to do something.
Heather?
I remember Ben Bradley and lovely sainted Philip from Keighley was always on about trying to look after white working class boys, and they were pilloried in Parliament, absolutely pilloried. And isn't it interesting? What goes around comes around.
About time. Well, listen, Paul Richards, Heather Wheeler, thank you for joining us tonight on GBN Tonight. And with the next host of our show tonight on GB News, Matt Gould. What's on your show tonight?
Has Donald Trump smashed the Liberal consensus? We'll be talking about that. Is this actually the start of a new economic world order? And also, is it true that Brexit is the real dividend in all of this. What's actually behind the discount, if you like, on our tariffs. We're also going to be talking about a shocking case, Chris, but Syrian terrorist has been allowed to stay in the UK. What on earth is going on there? And then we've got Brendan O'Neill joining the show tonight to talk about Marine Le Pen getting shut down in France, AfD candidates getting shut down in Germany. Are we now entering a new era of post-democracy? We're going to be talking about that shortly.
Have you watched Adolescence yet?
It's on the list. I'm waiting for the Netflix documentary on the rape gangs. That's what I'm waiting for.
Yes, well, you see that on Charlie Peters' work on GBNews.
And it's been absolutely pioneering.
Listen, thank you for joining us tonight. Paul Richards, Heather Wheeler, and of course Matt Goodwin. It has a great show coming up there, of course, with State of the Nation with Matt Goodwin. But first, very shortly, it's warm outside. Enjoy the weekend. Here's the weather now with Tom Morgan.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hi there, and welcome to your latest Met Office forecast for GB News. There's going to be plenty more fine weather on offer over the next 24 hours. Lots of warm sunshine on Friday, but there will be a little bit of patchy rain in some western areas overnight Thursday and into Friday, and that's courtesy of these weather fronts moving in from the south, so something a little bit more unsettled perhaps for a time. But as we go into Thursday evening, that rain starts to clear away from southwestern England and Wales, moves into Northern Ireland, but I think we'll only see just some patchy light rain by the end of the night. Most places staying dry with clear spells and turning pretty cold across Scotland and the north of England. A frost in places, but much milder in the south compared to of late, and temperatures in double figures for some of us as we begin the day on Friday. So a bit of a cloudier start for some of us as we begin the day on Friday. Some areas of low cloud moving into northeastern parts of Scotland. So Aberdeenshire, Caithness, a bit cloudy here, but most parts of Scotland, blue skies and sunshine after that chilly start. Temperatures will quickly rise as well. A bit more in the way of cloud across Northern Ireland, Wales and the southwest. Still one or two spots of rain here and there, but most places quickly becoming dry. And then the vast majority of the UK will have a fine and increasingly sunny day on Friday. That sunshine's got some strength to it now, so temperatures quickly rising into the low 20s in some southern parts by the afternoon. Those North Sea coasts, though, still fairly chilly. That brisk northeasterly wind keeping temperatures on the east coast more like 10 or 11 degrees at best. But in the sunshine everywhere, out of that breeze, it will feel pretty warm. As we move into the weekend then, Saturday starts off on a fairly cloudy note for some central and eastern parts of England and eastern Scotland, but once again that cloud burning away quite nicely and then lots of sunshine by the afternoon. And once again it will feel fairly warm in that sunshine, but not quite as warm as it has done of late. But plenty of fine weather in the outlook, even into next week. Lots of sunshine, temperatures a little bit lower than of late.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.